Hi, my name is Valerie Nelson. I currently live in Salt Lake City, Utah, where I was born and raised, and I am a flight attendant. I have traveled to 96 countries, and I've used several different modes of travel: camper vans, trains, buses, sailboats. I first became interested in traveling when I was in elementary school, and these ambassadors came all the way from New Zealand and told us all about the glowworm caves and underground rivers and beautiful mountains and landscapes. And it sparked a little excitement inside of me. And I was probably 10 years old at the time, but I didn't really see myself becoming a real wanderer someday. I grew up in a really small farm town in Utah, Richfield, Utah, and I was really able to start traveling in college. Basically, I didn't have any money to really go anywhere, so I started researching ways of traveling on a budget. So I figured out that I could become friends with people who worked in the aviation industry and use buddy passes, or I could volunteer to give up my seat when I was at the airport to go on a later flight. So once I learned these skills, I really started traveling as soon as I graduated from college. And one summer I took a job working in LA as a door-to-door sales rep selling pest control. I can't believe I did that job. And it just wasn't really for me. I was living by the beach, which I really wanted to explore that at some point in my life, but I just felt like there was something else for me. So I ended up in Las Vegas, of all places, as a live-in nanny, and I met the friend who pretty much changed the course of my life and also had a little bit of wanderlust inside of her as well. So we moved back to Utah together. We moved into a tiny little apartment, and we saved as much money as we could for about 4 months until we were able to get buddy passes and fly to Greece. So that was the first trip we ever took, and we traveled and backpacked all over Europe for about 5 weeks. And once we came home from that trip, we were hooked. We just could not wait until we were able to go on our next trip. That was when I was about 22 years old. And several years later, I've now traveled to almost 100 countries. And here's my story, starting with Utah. Although I've always loved exploring new places, somehow I always end up back in Utah. There's something very mysterious and intriguing about southern Utah red rock and desert country, and also something quite magical about central to northern Utah, with aspen forests, pine trees, huge majestic mountains, hot springs, lakes, rivers, and wildflower meadows. I remember moving around so often to big cities when I first became a flight attendant and feeling a yearning to go back to the place where I grew up. My dad was a bit of a mountain man. He taught me the value and importance of appreciating your roots and where you come from. I had a wonderful childhood and adolescence growing up, very wild, with my dad talking to me about exploring all the corners of Utah, as well as flying into all the places that no one else could ever travel to. My dad was a pilot, and we had a little airplane growing up. It was a Cessna 172, and we'd fly deep into the desert and the mountains in search of the wildest of places. We hiked in southern Utah and drove motorcycles. We went spelunking in caves. We went river rafting down the Green River, sat in hot springs, explored Narrows, visited all the national parks. We went fishing at Maple Grove and deer hunting in Fish Lake, which is where I grew up, going to a rustic primitive cabin that my grandpa built. I've been skiing and snowboarding since I was 12 years old, when my sister took me to try it out for the first time, and I sat on the hill most of the day. But now I'm able to ski double black diamonds on pretty much any mountain in Utah. I've always loved visiting Park City and walking up and down Main Street, watching all the tourists and going out to dinner at all the nice restaurants. Then driving over to Midway to swim in the Homestead Crater, which is a big hot spring with an earth dome over the top. I also was able to get scuba certified there. A lot of times when I'm traveling and I mention that I'm from Utah, not many people have visited and they don't really realize all the beautiful national parks we have, like Zion's, Bryce Canyon, and Canyonlands, Arches in Moab where the famous Delicate Arch stands, and Capitol Reef. Another place I visit often are the Bonneville Salt Flats out at the Great Salt Lake to camp out under the stars. I just can't get enough of Utah. I have spent the majority of my life here and I don't get tired of it. I love this place and I hope to inspire others to visit and fall in love with it as well.